we can, you know, help him be the young man that I always knew he could be. He was always, you know, you can tell somebody 6, 7, 8 years old that they're a bright person. But I'm so happy to tell you, not once have I had to tweak him up. Not one sanction, and coming up on 2 years. And even last year, and it's a big step. But I asked him to play golf with us in our Boys and Girls Club tournament there. And I'm sorry, Jesse, but hope you had a good time. But you know, now I want him to tell you the story, but just couldn't be proud of anybody on the side.
I'm Jesse. I'm an addict. I'm nervous too. Anyway, my clean date is March 26, 2013, and that was the last day that I, put dope in my body, and that was the day before I got out of jail. I kind of did it backwards, and I want to go back a little bit. Like I remember I was 16. It's the first time I ever put alcohol in my body. That was the first drug I did, and I don't remember the first time I drank a Coke. I don't remember the first time I even smoked a cigarette, but I remember the first time that I drank. So I knew that it, looking back on it now, that it must have done something to me. And the first time that I drank, I really loved the effects that I got from it, and I felt accepted. I felt included. It calmed my nerves. Like, it just did a lot of things for me that I've been looking for, where I'd felt left out my whole entire life. And I was a little late compared to my friends getting involved in stuff like that, but it was what I've been missing, and that's what it did for me. It didn't take very long, maybe like a year, and I started smoking pot, and immediately I started, getting into selling a little bit and experimenting with other drugs. And, I didn't really have any consequences. I graduated high school with honor roll. I was an Eagle Scout. I had a lot of good things going for me. And when I was 18, I went to the University of Tennessee. And actually, I went as a major in political science, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer like my dad. And, I got up there, and I went to like half my classes, and I passed half my classes, and the other classes I failed. And it was all because I was, doing drugs and drinking and partying. But, I thought, I'm 18, it's my first time out of the house, and I'm okay with that. I thought that's what all kids my age did. And I got into, going to festivals and taking hallucinogens and experimenting basically with about any drug that I could get my hands on. I would try it. I didn't think that I was an addict, or I really didn't know what an addict was, and I didn't think I was addicted, because I wasn't addicted to one specific thing. I just liked all drugs. And that was kind of the cycle that I was in for the next, 5 or so years. And, that's what I did. I sold pot, and I made enough money to support my habit and buy other drugs and party. And I failed out of school at this point, and I got a job bartending, and, I thought I was living a pretty good life. I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. I had a lot of good times, during that time. And I remember that, I'll fast forward a little bit, but I was bartending, and I'd always had a bad back from playing sports and different stuff, and I decided to take some pain pills, and I liked the effects that they did for me, and I felt like I could serve tables better, bartend better, talk to people better, and it made my back pain go away. And I actually quit doing all drugs and drinking except for smoking pot, and I was like, I've really found something cool here. It felt good going into my work and ordering a Coke to drink instead of a beer, because my drinking at this point was really bad. And so that's what I did, and I didn't think that I really had a problem with it, because I was making enough money to support it, and I would buy, a couple pills a day, and it finally progressed until I kept going to stronger pain medicine, stronger pain medicine, stronger pain medicine. And I remember by this point it was like 2009, and my buddy called me one day and said, "Don't you get sick when you quit taking these?" And I said, "No." But really, I hadn't quit taking them in like 3 years. I'd had them every day, so I didn't know what withdrawals were. And I was full-blown, really hard painkillers I was doing. And I said, well, I'm just going to quit them, anyway, they're getting expensive. And so that's what I did. I tried to quit them, and I made it, I believe, like a day and a half, and I started physically feeling it, mentally feeling it. And I said, okay, I'm not ready to give it up yet. And so I continued on, and I progressed, in the ways that I was doing the pills too. I went from taking them by mouth to snorting them to IV drug use. And later that year, I remember I landed in my first detox. I talked to my dad, and I was like, I need to go in somewhere. And I detoxed. And that was the first time that I had a seed planted inside of me. And I was introduced to my first NA meeting, and people came into the detox, and everyone's like, you're going to make it, you can tell. And I really was there to listen and learn, and I didn't really understand anything that they were saying that much, but I was getting a little bit more of an understanding. And I think I went 5 days, medically detoxed, and went back out and went and got a pill the very first thing when I got out. And but I was trying to go to meetings, and I would go to a meeting the next morning, and then I would go get a pill, and then I would go to another meeting, and then that continued until like a month later, I landed back in another detox. And I stayed in detox at a place, and then went to a 90-day treatment facility. And I think I was there like 3 days. And I called my dad, and I called some people, and I was like, someone needs to come pick me up, I'm ready to go. I'm not going to use drugs anymore. I'm ready, and I just don't want to be here because I didn't have my car, I didn't have my keys, I didn't have my cell phone, and no one would come get me. So I left, and it was at English Mountain, and so I hitchhiked off English Mountain, and it took me like maybe 30 minutes of walking up the road, and I got a ride back to Sevierville, and immediately I went and got some drugs, and I knew I wasn't ready to quit using, and every time like Whitney and them talked about it, gets worse. And I don't consider any of that stuff relapses because I never had recovery before that. I was just doing what I knew how to do. I didn't understand the problem. I was just doing what I wanted to do and what I knew how to do, and that was put drugs in my body. And so that continued on until things got really, really out of hand. I had a really bad. I started going to the doctor and getting stuff prescribed to me, and my addiction just got way, way out of hand. And my dad and family and everyone, they had a hand in cutting me off from some heavy enablers in my life that I manipulated out of a lot of money. And my dad's finally realized how severe my problem had gotten, because I hid a lot of that stuff from them. And they're like, we found a treatment center for you down in Louisiana, and we want you to go there. And so my money was, had run out, and I decided it was time to go. So I hopped on a plane, and I remember I brought drugs and everything with me on the plane down there. That was before they had the body scanners, and I just walked straight through with everything in my pocket, because that's how much I just really didn't care and how strong my addiction was. I remember my hardest decision was I had a layover in Memphis, and I kept walking in the bathroom and walking out because I only had one pill left, and I was like, I want to save it till I get to Louisiana, but I can't save it. Should I do it now? No, I need to save it. And that was I was arguing with myself in Memphis airport on whether to do it now or not. So I finally got to Louisiana, and I'd saved that medicine, and the dude from the treatment center was there picking me up, and I think he called my dad, and my dad had called me. They're like, where are you at? They can't find you. And I was in the bathroom. And I finally went to treatment. I didn't know what to expect. I was the longest detox patient they'd ever had there. I was medically detoxed for 16 days. And I graduated the 30-day program. I stayed for another 90 days in this other part of the program. I was going to stay 9 months, and I'd been sober 4.5 months. I was going to meetings. I was learning about the 12 steps that they taught you, and I didn't really have a really good understanding, but I was learning more each time that I went places. And it was the first time that I actually had stayed sober for any significant amount of time. Me, 1 hour at this point was really a long time for me, and I'd stayed sober almost 5 months. And I was working, but I was still in inpatient treatment. And I remember I got a check, and I went and got a bus ticket and left treatment and decided to come back to Tennessee. And I think it took maybe a few days until I started using again. And of course, it took a couple months, but things were right back where they were at before, if not worse. And finally, I burned up a lot of bridges again. And so I decided, hey, it's time to go to treatment again. And I actually took the tools and used the steps that I knew from before. I called some of my friends in Louisiana that were still sober, and I was like, you know, I got to do something. And a lot of it had to do with, you know, I owed some people some heavy amounts of money too, and I was scared, and I knew they'd be after me. I knew I couldn't get my drugs anymore, and I was ready to, you know, get sober again. And so I went back to Louisiana. Because my buddy told me down there, he said, if you just get on the bus, I didn't have a car or anything at the time, he said, if you get on the bus and come down here, I'll detox you at my condo. And I was like, that sounds pretty sweet. So that's what I did. I got on the Greyhound bus. It's like 17 hours. I'm back down in Louisiana. And I went in, let's see. First thing he did was he took me to a hospital, and they put me in a psych unit. So there was no detoxing at his condo, but they put me on a suicide hold for like 72 hours. They kept me for another 2 days after that. I was in there with other drug addicts and some people with some other problems too. But I knew I was in a safe place, and they pulled some strings and got me in a different, like a state-funded treatment center in Louisiana. And I went in there, and let's see, I think I had a 15-day period in between getting out of that detox and going there, and people took care of me while I was down there. I had a little bit of money from selling my pain medicine before I left, but they put me up in some places, and I stayed at a halfway house. They let me transition there, and I went back into this treatment center, and it was a different treatment center, and this place was a state-funded place. It was not as nice as the other places I'd been, but I learned more than I ever had. Like, stuff finally started making sense to me. And so I did 30 days, and I graduated, and I went to a sober living home, and I decided to stay in Louisiana. And there comes like 5 months again, and things caught up with me, and the mental obsession to use drugs and alcohol came over me. And I fought it for another 2 or 3 weeks. And I was trying to go to meetings, and I was trying to talk to people about it. I was trying to pray about it because I had a good relationship, I thought, with a higher power and a God. And I'd done some soul searching, but this mental obsession would not leave me. And I decided, that I was going to use again, just one time. And I hoped that they didn't random drug test me in the house and I'd get away with it. And that's when I called a friend that I was in treatment with. I knew he'd relapsed. And I said, I want to find some pills. And he said he wasn't messing with that anymore. He was messing with heroin. And so I'd upgraded and progressed again, and I gave in and did it. And that was the worst decision at that time to ever make. I'm lucky that I didn't die for how much that I did. But from that point on, I ended up staying at the sober living home for another 9 days. And I didn't get caught at the time, but the first time that I put drugs in my body again, I could not quit. And I was using pain, I started getting pain pills and heroin, and 9 days later, they popped a random drug test on me, and I just packed my stuff and said, sorry guys, I've relapsed, and I'm leaving. And my plan was to make enough money that night at work to get gas money. I had a vehicle to come back to Tennessee. And my, addiction at this point was so strong that I couldn't quit using. And so a couple people let me stay with them for a night or two. Granted, all my family's back in Tennessee. I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's the middle of the summer. And, finally a couple days go by and I called a buddy and he's like, you can come stay, I've got an apartment. I don't stay there, but you can go stay there. And so I ended up showing up there, and like Chris was there and a few other people that I'd been in treatment. It was like all the people that were from out of states that come to Louisiana had relapsed were at this dude's apartment. There were 6 people there. And they were all heroin addicts. And, it was just a really, really rough time because I wanted to come back to Tennessee, but I was embarrassed to tell my family that I'd relapsed because, I'd already gained so much back in my life. And of course, I was the only one with a job there. I was the only one that ever had any cigarettes or anything like that. And it was just a whole nother level of addiction that I hadn't seen before, and the stuff that I was doing, to get the drugs. And, my whole life revolved around heroin at this point. And so finally, after 8 weeks of pretty much being homeless, because, I slept in the floor. It was a wooden floor. Like, I think I had a blanket. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have food in the refrigerator. We didn't have, really anything, and everyone was just using off everyone else. 2 of the people I lived with there have died in the past year. And there's no doubt in my mind, if I still would have been there, I'd probably be right there with them. But, I stayed there for 8 weeks, and it was just really horrible, living. And finally, I knew I had to do something. So I came back to Tennessee. I sold my Jeep. I scrapped it because it broke down on me. I think I got $350. I bought a bus ticket and, a bag of heroin, and that's what I did. I got on the bus, and I was back in Tennessee. And immediately I started making my family mad with my addiction and stuff again. And I think my mom was threatening to like get me locked up and stuff, and the next thing I knew, a week later, I was on a plane back to Louisiana. And I was like, I want to go to treatment again. I've got connections down there, I can do it. And really in my mind, I think I really wanted that, but the other part of my mind was just really wanting to use again. I was wanting to use something that I couldn't get up here. And so that's what I did. I went into detox. I left after 2 days and thought I didn't need it anymore. And then I went to the treatment center and told them I was already detoxed. And it was like 2.5 hour drive from Baton Rouge, and I was there 3 days, and I ended up hitchhiking out of there. And I hitchhiked back to Baton Rouge to get a bag. And next thing you know, I was on a bus back to Tennessee. And so this is all like within a 2-month period of me relapsing. And when I come back up here, I tried some other ways to get sober. I tried the methadone clinic. I tried a faith-based rehab, but the reason these things didn't work is because I didn't want it. Or I could not be in a safe place long enough to quit using. I think I really did want it, but I just didn't believe in myself that I could honestly do it again. And so that led me up to a couple months later. I got kicked out of the methadone clinic for doctor shopping and going to a pain clinic too. They found out. And I remember I went and got my prescription pills, and I ran out. And I decided to, I was with a female friend at the time, and we decided to rob a pharmacy. I never had been arrested before. I'd had a couple run-ins with the law, but I decided that it was a good idea. I said, it meant more to me, and I was telling Judge Sloan this other day, it meant more to me for the fact that I might have a chance to get high that day than my freedom meant, because I knew I was going to get caught. And so I walked in this place, and I told them that I had a weapon, and I demanded pain pills. And, they gave me what I asked for, and I left. And a few hours later, I heard that cops were looking for me, and so at this point again, I'm running again, I'm scared, and I didn't know what to do, so I went back to Louisiana. And I remember being in a motel room down there, and 10 days had went by. I've been out of drugs. I'm out of all the money that I got rid of some of the drugs. I'm out of all it. I was sitting in a motel room. I had one night left on it. I had like maybe 3 or 4 cigarettes left and no drugs. And, you know, my grandma bought me a bus ticket back home. And, you know, once again, I know I'd be dead if I was still in Louisiana at this point, too. I was so desperate. I was ready to do anything I could to keep, you know, I was on a downward spiral. And something told me I needed to come back home. Knowing that I was going to get, you know, go to jail, but, so I came back home, and the girl I was with at the time, she went her way when we got back to Tennessee, and I went my way, and I went to my mom's house. Knowing that I would, you know, probably be confronted the next day by detectives, or that night, or a week later, or whatever. But I was content with it, and that's what I did. I went back home, and the next morning, 3 detectives came and picked me up, took me in, and you know, I felt a relief. You know, I was tired of running. I was tired of living the life that I was living. So I went into jail, and I detoxed really, really hard. And then a couple weeks after I was in jail, I started getting drugs while I was in the jail. And I mean, there was a lot of them. They were having some problems out in Granger County when I was there. And, I remember like a month or 2 after I was in jail, my dad came to visit me, and I was like, you gotta bomb me out. You gotta put me in rehab or something. There's so many drugs in here right now. And he said, well, at least you can't rob anyone. And, you know, that saved my life right there, because, you know, I know that I wouldn't have stayed clean if I would have bonded out or whatever. I had no intentions of staying clean, really. I was using the whole time I was in jail. And so I stayed in there about 4.5, 5 months, and they worked it out for me to go to treatment. And I knew that, you know, Judge Sloan had possibly wanted me in drug court, and I was willing to do anything to get out of jail, but I really didn't plan on staying completely sober, because once again, I still didn't have the faith that I was going to be able to stay sober. I went to treatment for 30 days, and then, you know, I talked to Patty the day I got out of treatment, and or it was 28 days or whatever, and she said they were going to talk about it, and they accepted me in the drug court. And I believe I'm possibly the first person ever to get accepted in drug court on a robbery charge. And I really, you know, appreciate that opportunity, because anyone that knew me knew that, you know, it was the drugs that I'd been doing. That's all that had run my life the last so many years. And I remember when I first came into drug court, I went into class and stuff, and I really thought, you know, that I thought I could teach this class. And I thought maybe they'll start letting me teach here in a few months, and then they'll take me on probation and let me out, because I've been through treatment so many times and meetings and all this stuff, and I really felt like I knew a lot more than what the you know, the people that were running it knew. But for the first time in my life, I actually, you know, really kind of sat down and shut up and tried to listen to what they were saying. Even if I didn't agree with everything they were saying, I tried to listen to what they were saying. I tried to listen to what other people were saying. I tried to, you know, learn how to let others be where they were at the time that they were at. And, you know, I realized the first time in my life that I didn't know everything. And I immediately got involved with meetings. I started going to NA meetings, and I immediately got a sponsor. I started going early to meetings. I started meeting people. I started, you know, putting out chairs, doing whatever I could do to just keep my mind busy. I was living at my dad's at the time, and I started just really just getting involved, and I really tried to, like Amber said, chase my recovery just like I chased drugs, which, you know, I was told if I put half the effort in, that I would be okay. And the most important thing that stuck out to me was just don't use no matter what. And at this point, I just knew, I started working some steps that I learned. And, you know, in the first step, I learned that I had a problem, and my problem was that I was completely powerless. And I had, you know, unmanageability in my life. And, you know, that was an easy step for me to take, because I knew that. And once I could understand that as being the problem, I was able to start working on a solution. And if the problem is powerless, the solution is power. So something that helped me was I threw out everything that I thought I knew about God. I threw all that stuff out because what I thought I knew about God really wasn't, it wasn't my personal relationship with God. So I started from scratch because the stuff that I've been doing before wasn't working for me. So I started over, and you know, I started to believe that there definitely was something out there, and I started trying to build a relationship with a loving, caring God. And you know, in step 3, I made a decision that I was going to work the rest of the steps. The people I've seen in and out of the rooms, you know, they stop at step 3 and don't want to do a 4-step and stuff. And you know, I wrote all that stuff down, and I'd done a couple 4 steps before, but I had to really, you know, search fearlessly and look at all the stuff and the exact nature of my wrong, because I was delusional about a lot of things for a long time. You know, so I cleared all this stuff up, and you know, in steps 6 and 7, I started working on becoming an honest person through step 7, a person that was very honest, a person that had a lot of faith, when before I had a lot of fear and I was dishonest and disrespectful and selfish. And I started trying to be and praying for and asking for guidance to be the complete opposite of what I'd been before. And you know, I started trying to make amends for my past. Immediately I started, you know, living amends with my family. That took time. Right now I'm working on some financial amends, and you know, it's truly been a blessing. And you know, I wouldn't trade this life for anything today. If you'd asked me a year ago if I'd be where I'm at right now, because you know, I got married in July this past year to my wife. My wife's here tonight, and you know, she's been the biggest support I've had in my life. She's in recovery too, and you know, when we met, we both weren't looking, I don't think, for love at first or anything else. I think it was a God thing when we met, and you know, I had to work on the inside to get the things that I've got on the outside. You know, it all had to start with the inside, because before I was trying to work on the outside and hope that it would fix my inside. But once I started working on myself and working on the inside, all that other stuff just fell into place. And you know, I've worked really hard to get where I'm at, but God's blessed me with a lot that I wasn't capable of doing on my own. And you know, I know right now, if it wasn't for drug court, I wouldn't be standing here before you today. And you know, like someone was talking about earlier, just giving back, man, I try to give back as much as I can. I'm a completely different person than I was, because when I give back, it helps me. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything, but I know I can lose it in a second. And the most important thing to me is remembering how powerless I am. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of our graduates. Patty Williams, who we're so blessed to have as our, they change names on you all the time. She's no longer drug court coordinator, she's drug court director.